Hey everybody, this is Brian Kelly from Association Mavens, the place to get direct access to some of the foremost thinkers and teachers in the association industry. My guest today is Teri Carden, and Teri is the founder of a new site called ReviewMyAMScom. She's also a partner in Online Community Results, the go-to group for helping organizations really grow their online communities. Now, Teri's also had direct association experience working in marketing and technology roles for the Florida Society of Association Executives, as well as the Association for Retail Environments. So Teri, thank you so much. Welcome to Association Mavens.
Thanks so much, Brian. I'm so glad to be here.
Cool. So Teri, I, of course, had to have you on the show to learn a little bit more about what exactly it is that you're doing with this new site that's come out, ReviewMyAMScom. And let's just jump right into it. Let's talk about before we talk about where, let's talk about what exactly this is. So if I'm hearing this for the first time and I've never visited the site, can you break down exactly what I can expect when I go to your site?
Sure. So the elevator speech is that Review My AMS is a online platform, an online website where association professionals can go and give a review of their association management system database. And once they give a review, then they would be able to read reviews from other association professionals.
So, okay, that's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. Let's talk a little bit about how this thing works. So if I go to the site and I want to use it, what are some of the things that I can expect or the ways that I can leverage what you have here as a resource?
Sure. So what an association professional can expect when they go to the site is the model is very altruistic. It's made where association professionals, as long as they give a review, then they will be able to read all the reviews. So the storyboard behind the user's experience when they get there is they're going to go to the site, and when it's live and launched officially, which we can talk about a little bit later, but the user's experience will be where they will go on, they will be able to log in, create a login credential, give a review, and when they give their review, they can expect to give 5-star ratings on reliability, ease of use, customization, and customer service. And then after those 5-star ratings, then they can actually give a written review. So they would be able to give a title to their review, which some of those have been pretty comical. And then they can actually give a full written review. And the association professionals that have been giving reviews to date so far have been very thoughtful about the way that they are providing information to their fellow association executives. So it's a very empowering platform. It's bringing a unity to a conversation that is constantly talked about, which is the database.
Yeah. All right. So obviously, being somebody who works for an AMS and knowing a lot of the challenges that many association executives face with just in AMS in general, that database, there's things that you love, there's things that you hate, there's always something that causes some level of angst, and that's just natural. That's
Sure.
the course of things related to a lot of these systems, and there's a wide range of various kinds of membership management systems.
Sure.
So let's talk a little bit about how did this come to be? Why did you start this site? What was the need in the association market that you feel like you're able to tap into with this particular resource? I would love to hear the story behind how all this got started.
Sure. So it was, once the concept was created, it was one of those things that kept me up at night, and one of the first things that I thought about in the morning. So after the concept was created, I knew it was something that had to be done. But how it originated was I was on staff with the Florida Society of Association Execs, and being on staff there as the marketing and technology director, I got to rub elbows with some of the coolest association professionals in the space. And I got to dive into some of the coolest technologies in the space as well. And so in developing partnerships and implementing and integrating new systems with the Florida Society of Association Execs, I was able to then relay some of this information that I found out to my fellow execs in Florida. Yeah. And that has sort of permeated across my network within the ASAE networks as well. So I've kind of become this go-to girl for questions about technology. And, there has been a little uproar in the AMS space recently with, mergers and acquisitions and, all kinds of hairy things going on, even more than hairy things than are particularly going on in the AMS space. And so, I had an association professional come to me toward the end of last year. And she messaged me and she said, hey, I'm curious about this AMS. I know you know about what's going on in the marketplace because you're so tapped in. And she said, can you fill me in? And of course, at the time, it was, red flags, don't do it. You're going to be crazy. You almost be like a laughing stock if you go down this road right now. And I knew that because I have a little intel going on. And so I looked at my colleague and I said, how in the heck does she not know that this is going on in the space? She's tapped in herself. She's aware with what's going on in the association community. How does she not know that this is going on? And I said out loud, it's almost like we need a review site for AMSs because the conversation is like a broken record. What AMS are you using? Do you like it? What don't you like about it? And the conversation just continues. If you look in online communities, if you go to conferences where association professionals are gathering, or even if you're trying to have like a social dinner with some of your association friends, it seems like it always comes down at some point comes down to the database. So I took that idea that kind of just sort of fell out of our mouths at that time and said, I wonder if there's some merit there. Let's look at it, let's think about it. So when I went I gathered all my thoughts and I called some mentors and called some fellow association professionals and said, hey, what do you think about this idea? Without stealing it. Don't steal it, but what do you think about it? And I was getting some positive feedback, but I didn't want to hear from the people that were necessarily closest to me that were going to tell me the things that I wanted to hear. Yeah. I wanted to hear from the marketplace themselves. So I went to the tech conference, the ASAE Technology Conference, and there I did some market research. And the findings were rather interesting. And so here I sit today saying that the findings made it a go.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's really interesting as a concept because there's so many things that, in modern life today, resources, what have you, where you're able to go and read reviews. Maybe it's something as straightforward as Amazon.com. Maybe it's TripAdvisor.com. Yelp, whatever it is, there's usually something that's there to help you provide just a little bit of extra due diligence on what it is. And I know for like myself, when I go to Amazon and I read reviews or, whether it's TripAdvisor, I always take those reviews with a grain of salt for a number of reasons. And I think that these are all pretty apparent reasons, but it is an additional layer, an additional ability to gather the information, to gather the intelligence to help you make an informed decision. Now, do you go to these review sites to say, I'm going to base my decision solely on this?
Right.
No. Nope. You're getting input and feedback from others. In the association industry, many associations work with vendor selection consultants to help them really vet out what are some of the things that you need. What are the systems out there that have a good fit for that? So that's a key element. Obviously, talking with other customers of that system that you might be evaluating, or the various systems you might be evaluating, is another good way. So to me, this is really interesting because it just gives one additional tool in the tool belt for association executives to go out, do their research, to get answers to the questions that they've got, and balance that with a number of different things. So very cool.
I mean, Brian, you're really taking the words out of my brain. And I mean, really, it's like you're a fly on the wall of my brain. That's exactly what I would say to someone who would ask me, how should I use this tool? Yeah. And I call it a discovery tool. So you're right. This is not a tool that's going to replace the consultants that can give you expert opinions and insights on what these association management systems are doing. It's not going to replace you doing demos, with these vendors. It's not going to replace anything. It's not a substitute. It's an addition. So use it that way. Use it wisely. When I was doing my market research at the tech conference, I asked several people how they intended to use the site. Like, when it's live, how do you plan on using it? Yeah. I also asked them how they use review sites now. And the responses were very similar to what you say. You can take them with a grain of salt, but you also what I've gathered from all of those thoughts from those people are that use it as a way that it can help prompt more questions in the demo phase, right? Yep. So let's just say there's a trend coming up. The AMS, has a trend about release notes. Let's just say in the reviews, it says something about, they never prepare us for the releases. We don't really know when the new releases are coming, and then we're not really prepared for it. Let's just say that's an example. 3 out of 15 reviews mention that. Well, that's kind of a trend, with 3 different reviews. So that might be something that would then prompt you to ask, okay, what are the steps that you follow to let your clients know that you have a release coming? Or what do you do after the release is done? And it's not, don't take it for like absolute gospel to say they suck at, giving releases, doing releases. No, allow it to give you information, empower you with information to ask the right questions. So that's how I expect it to be used. That's how I hope for it to be used.
Fantastic. Okay, now let me ask you a question that might be kind of an obvious question to ask, but I'm sure a lot of viewers of the show are probably thinking it. How is ReviewMyAMS.com different in that sense from being able to get some, insight from other fellow association executives compared to something like, maybe it's ASAE's Collaborate website where you can, share in the forums and through the listserv, put out questions and float those things and then get feedback from the community. How do you see these things being different or supplemental or complementary, what have you? We'd love to hear what you think on that.
Sure. Yeah. So as I just mentioned, it's not a supplement for the conversations that you're having with your peers. It's not a supplement for you doing demos or for you doing your homework otherwise. It is a part of the discovery phase. I love ASAE's Collaborate. It's an awesome platform for association execs all over the world to be able to connect, and it's a really powerful tool. One of the things that it is lacking is a place where a funnel where association execs can go and say, okay, I need to have a conversation specifically on AMSs. Right. Let me gather up all of the conversations that have been had about all the AMSs and plop it down in one document for me. And that's really what Review My AMS will allow for us to do. It will allow, it's basically aggregating a lot of these conversations and putting it in one place. Yeah. So instead of you having to search through a lot of the conversations that are maybe had in the tech communities section of Collaborate, or maybe you attended a session 6 months ago and you have notes somewhere, and you're digging for notes that somebody told you about on some database or something. Instead of that, it's a one-stop shop just on reviews from your peers about AMSs. Right. Now, how it's also different is, and that might not be so obvious, is that the reviewers can give an anonymous review. So, in doing my research with Review My AMS, I quickly found out that the relationship between the AMS and between the reviewer are can tend to be a little political, and I can't think of a better word to use right now than that. It might not be 100% political, but there's a relationship there, and a lot of times association professionals don't want to jeopardize or put their name out there in front of the whole world about what they have to say. So in order to be able to provide the most honest review, then they are allowed to check, yes, I want to be provide an anonymous review. And what that does is that really creates a site that allows the professionals, the execs, to say what they need to say without harm coming to them from other association professionals or from the AMS themselves.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I'm asked the question like, well, what happens if a competitor comes in there and gives a review, or what happens if somebody says something wrong about an AMS? What if it's not true? Much like a lot of other social platforms out there, the community is going to correct itself. So, you go in, you read reviews, and the review says, you see somebody bashes or says something incorrect about an AMS. The other users will come in and say, I've had no problem with that. I haven't had this kind of situation. They'll sort of balance each other out.
Yeah.
And there is a feature in there where if an AMS sponsors the site, then they would be able to reply to all of the reviews. That could also help, balance and correct, any kind of missteps that misguiding words that an association exec might say on their review. So,
gotcha.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, totally. I think it's, just diving into it a little bit deeper and kind of pointing that out or, addressing that, because I think it's something that it's like, okay, there's a lot of different resources out there. This one is providing something very narrowly focused. Mm-hmm. What's the difference? So I think we got that nailed down pretty good. Okay. All right. So Teri, the next thing I wanted to ask you was, I know recently you and I briefly caught up at the ASAE Great Ideas Conference, and mm-hmm. you were kind of sharing some of the stories of things that you've been hearing, the feedback that you've been getting, and would love to have you just share, a few different maybe anecdotal stories of the type of feedback that you're getting from folks who are starting to participate in the site as you're kind of growing it and moving forward.
Sure. So whenever I mention this site to association professionals, it's almost like the light bulb, just starts shining. They're like, and sometimes I get, I wish I had thought of this, or sometimes I get, ooh, you're very brave, or sometimes I get like, oh my gosh, I can't wait. Where do I sign up? Can you send me the results now? I needed this like 2 weeks ago when I was trying to make an informed decision. But there's no doubt about it. There's excitement and there's momentum there. And that makes me really excited. So that's from the association professional side. I've had, association execs tell me that I think the story I shared with you was the one where I was sitting in the Great Ideas General Session, and this woman that I didn't know came and sat next to me, and then after the session was over, we started chatting, and she said, I was telling her a little bit about my project, and she said, oh my gosh, she said, every time I go into a session, I try to sit next to somebody that I don't know, an effort to be able to have them help me. I ask, please let me sit next to someone that can help me with my future and what I'm trying to achieve here. And she said, with tears in her eyes, and I kid you not, she said, I cannot believe I sat next to you because you're exactly what I needed to hear. I've come to this conference so I could find out more information about AMSs because we were getting ready to do a switch. So those kind of stories just motivate me, first of all, and it's so exciting to see how this tool is going to change the marketplace, really. I don't know any other way to say it. And so I'm just really excited about it now. And so the association execs are excited about it, as you can see.
Yeah.
But from the AMS perspective, sometimes it can create a little bit of rumbles in the tummy, and those groans can sometimes come out of the mouth accidentally. Like, oh, wow, what is this going to do to our marketplace? What is this going to do to our reputation? What is this going to do to us as a company? What is happening? And there are several AMSs. I won't mention them all by name, but some, like you, they're Aptify, who are embracing the transparency that is going to come of this site. And those are the AMSs that I'm really excited to see grow at this, turning point, if you will, in the world of AMSs. So there are a few groans and moans coming from some AMSs, and then there are some that are really excited. So that's the kind of response that I'm getting.
Nice. Well, it's a fascinating idea. And as we kind of wind down our discussion, the last thing I wanted to cover with you was what's kind of the future hold for you? I know you're in the early phases of rolling this out. Maybe we call it a beta, what have you. There's a lot of things that you're just getting started with, but kind of the grand vision. What are some of the things that you're seeing with the natural evolution of where you're going with the project?
Sure. So I will admit I've taken off a lot more than I can chew. I've got some other small projects that I'm working on, although this is my baby right now, but it's a biggie. There's no doubt about it. But I am hoping that I have a small group of people that I can launch the beta site to around the end of this month, which is the end of March 2014, and then be able to produce it to the marketplace sometime in April, hopefully after all of my fixes from my beta testers are complete.
Yeah.
There are a couple conferences that are coming up that I'd like to have it at least be in a beta phase for, so that when I'm talking to people face to face, maybe I can look over their shoulder and see exactly how it is that they're exploring the site. Yeah. So I'm really close. There's a lot of hand cranking that's going on the back end for security reasons. It's like super important that I keep the people that are giving the reviews, very close to the chest, if you will, and that not revealing any kind of information. So there are a lot of security hoops that I have to jump through to make sure that the reputation of all of the reviews and the integrity of each of the reviews is sound. So that's really my biggest concern before we go live. But there you have it. Hopefully within the next 30 to 60 days, it will be rocking and rolling.
Cool. Well, I love it. Teri, thanks so much for joining me today to talk about this, and thanks to everybody for watching. If you like this interview, be sure to sign up over at associationmavens.com in the upper right-hand corner of the website, and you'll be updated of new episodes when they're released. Also, be sure to follow at Brian Kelly Now on Twitter to stay on top of all things Association Mavens related. So lastly, if you have a colleague, somebody that you respect in the industry who you think should be on this show, please go ahead and send us a message, and we'll be sure to book them for an upcoming session on Association Mavens. Well, until next time, thanks so much, guys.